Hi guys, welcome to the Dual Blade Guide. I did promise to make the Dual Blade Guide shortly after I made the Xenon Guide, and here it is. And I also would like to say that it is currently 12 AM and I'm quite tired, but I want to record this right now just because I believe I'll have a little too much work to do the next day. Although I don't think you guys mind my nighttime voice. Thank you also, by the way, for all the kind compliments about my voice. I am very flattered. I personally don't find my voice to be the most interesting to listen to. However, from what you guys have said so far, it definitely makes me happy that my voice is entertaining to you guys in a soothing way. But anyways, we're gonna get right into it, and I'll try my best to make this guide as concise as possible, because on my Xenon guide I did kind of over-explain a few skills, so I'll just give you guys the rundown, and yeah, should be pretty good to go. We're gonna cover it in the same fashion that I did with my Xenon, where we start off first with skills, then after the skills we go into V matrix, then into the hyperstats. Then after hyperstats we go into the inner ability, then the equipment selection, how you want to gear up your dual blade, and then finally wrap it up with link skills, which are pretty similar all across the board. And then that should be the final part. So we're going to get right into it right now. Let's not dilly-dally any longer. In terms of beginner skills, dual blades follow the same protocol, 3 beginner skills as adventurers in the form of 3 snails, recovery, and nimble feet. None of these are very important. They're all inconsequential just because you'll never be using them ever again after you get your first job. And we do not have any relatively important passive skills with the exception of return right here, which takes you back to the Koenig City back alley, which is the entrance to the secret garden or your job advancement location. And we are, I think, the only explorer in the game, besides maybe Cannoneer, who has a recall skill, because explorers don't actually have recall skills. The other classes do, like the legends, the heroes, and everything, but we do, which is awesome. Now really quickly, before we get into the rest of the skills, I do want to show you guys around Secret Garden because it is a very unique job location. It is located in Koenig City. In order to find it, other than using the recall skill, if you don't have, or if it's on cooldown, it's a portal right here in the middle of Koenig City. It says weapons made for self-protection. Go in here. Then you head in over here. Then the upwards will take you to the job advancement location, and downwards will take you to a very special spot in the dual blade area. So here we have Teha, who is the merchant, and he has these very special dual blade training books, and I will let you guys know what they're important for. But for now, that's just what you want to keep note of, because you will need these eventually. You need a total of 4. So anyone who wants to start making a dual blade, just remember that you have to get 4 of these. They're really cheap, pretty much like about 100k meso. Right, so first job, Dark Sight, the common thief skill, which allows you to hide in the shadows for a short time. The way it works is that it eliminates your hitbox, which means any attacks or collision-based events that require a hitbox, such as touch damage, terrain damage, and the like, will be completely ignored. However, every time you do avoid something that would normally cause damage to you that involves hitbox, like I said, such as Magnus's debris, the meteor debris, it will place a stack on the Dark Sight, which upon leaving Dark Sight will instigate a cooldown on Dark Sight, which basically prevents you from re-entering Dark Sight for a period of time. It's a nerf that Nexon implemented a few years back because it was just way too overpowered in certain locations, like, as I said before, Magnus. But it's still a very practical skill. Flash Jump, the usual Flash Jump mobility skill that pretty much every class gets, apart from mages who get teleport. Dual Blade's Flash Jump is not very long, it actually doesn't go very far. However, the benefit to Dual Blade's Flash Jump is that, unlike most other classes, it can double jump twice, which means that you can switch your directions whenever you want to. And honestly, I don't mind it being a moderate distance compared to the typical Shadow and Night Lord's longer Flash Jump, because we also do have supplementary mobility skills that can take us an extra distance away. Sidestep is a passive skill that gives you 15% avoidability. Dual blades have probably the most dodge chance of any class in the game innately, which is, it's to make up for our rather squishy durability. Band Slash is your standard attack right here for the first job. It's a pretty simple skill, just damages enemies in front of you. I honestly don't like this skill because before we had Triple Stab, which I enjoyed a lot more, although, you know, it does a lot of damage and it's a decent placeholder skill. Now, if you notice, dual blades actually have plus or 1.5, class 1.5 or first 1.5 job or something that we do have basically semi-job advancements throughout the first and second job. And the Blade Recruit is obtained at level 20, and I think the Blade Specialist is obtained at level 45. Just have to follow the quests that you get from your job instructor, and it writes itself out, so don't worry about it, it's not too convoluted. Upon reaching level 20, you become a Blade Recruit, and you get Katara Mastery, which means that Dual Blade gets probably the earliest Mastery skill out of any Explorer in the game. Self-Haste is like regular haste, except it buffs only yourself, as the name implies. Tornado Spin is a dashing skill that also is a rush. Upon activation, it just dashes you forward in a set direction, and any mobs that get hit by it will be pushed back. In fact, I'll show you guys in just a sec. Alright, here we are, and I'm going to show you guys what Tornado Spin does. So even though these mobs die, you'll notice they get pushed towards the ending point of my Tornado Spin. Tornado Spin is one of the few rush skills that can actually guarantee a pushback on your opponent, which means even certain bosses that have knockback resistance will still be pushed back, which is awesome. And Tornado Spin also is your first combo skill. As you can see, it says can be linked to Blade Ascension, and also can be linked to a few other skills, which I'll explain in a bit. Second job is Blade Acolyte. You get Fatal Blow, which is your first DPS single target attack. Dual Blades are one of the strongest single target DPSers in the game, so if you're into that kind of stuff, then they'll definitely help you out. It's a relatively weak attack. It only has a 108% damage ratio, which means it basically does 8% more than your regular attack. However, it attacks 7 times very quickly. Let me show you. That's what it looks like. So I'm going to attack a couple more guys. Pretty nifty skill, not very powerful, but it's not meant to be your final DPSing skill. Slash Storm is the first skill that requires that special mastery book I showed you in the shop in the Dual Blade hideout, and Dual Blades actually back then, a long time ago, required you to purchase their mastery books from the cash shop, which is why a lot of people did not like playing Dual Blade due to the fact that they were a literal pay-to-win class. But Nexon did turn it into Meso books, which is nice. It's another dash skill that attacks enemies that are in your path. However, unlike Tornado Spin, it is not a rush, it just simply does damage. Another thing to note is that if Slash Storm does not target an actual, if the Slash Storm does not have a target that's within its range, it will not actually dash you forward. It requires you to have a target that can be hit by it to dash forward. There you go. Guitar Booster, your standard booster, this is what it looks like. Physical Training is a passive skill, gives you luck and dex. Channel Karma is another passive skill, and it gives you 30 attack. This used to be a buff, but then during some more quality of life patches, Nexon turned this into a passive. In terms of how you want to max these skills out, fortunately, Dual Blades max all of their skills across every single job. You want to put 1 point in your offensive skills, and then focus on maxing out Katara Booster, Physical Training, Channel Karma, and then go over to Slash Storm and Fatal Blow. At Blade Specialist, you get some more awesome skills. Now this is where Dual Blade starts to get a bit more interesting. Flying Assaulter is the second Mastery Book required skill to unlock past level 5. It is an aerial dive type skill, which means that to activate it, you have to be in the air. You do have to be a certain distance up from the ground, which means that you need, I think, a jump of 115% or higher to be able to do it, which is easily achievable with self-haste. So this is what it looks like. Now, Flying Assaulter will always carry you forward no matter what, and Flying Assaulter actually also happens to be a rush skill, so you can chain this upon max level with Tornado Spin, like this. Now I did that very slowly, however, normally if you wanted to activate both Tornado Spin and Flying Assaulter back to back without any comboing, the delay would be actually quite substantial, like that. However, if you max out Flying Assaulter at level 20, it links to Tornado Spin and Bloody Storm, so you can combo your dash attacks to not only push enemies very far, but to travel very far, like this. So Dual Blades are very good at combo attacking. Not nearly as combo heavy as, Kadena, Arc, Blaster, and Kinesis and whatnot, but you get the idea. Upper Stab is a pretty simple attack. Now the way it works is that you basically stab enemies in front of you, and it launches enemies into the air, and any enemies that you hit in the air take 80% more damage. This is a pretty boring skill. Now, a quick combo you can use early on if you can't kill the enemies outright with Flying Assaulter and Tornado Spin is to use Flying Assaulter, Tornado Spin, then spam Upper Stab as much as you can until they die. I don't have this bind into a hotkey, but yeah. Flashbang, as the name implies, you just throw a flash bomb to a target, it blinds multiple monsters or targets, and it lowers their accuracy by 20%, and it also causes you to deal 10% more final damage to that target, meaning this is a very good debuff. It's got a moderately long cooldown, however it is a decent, somewhat ranged attack that you can use if you need to. Venom, as you know, every thief does come with Venom, which causes you to deal damage over time to targets at a specific chance. Now, unlike my usual policy where you want to max out the passive skills first, you actually want to max out Flying Assaulter first, because like I said before, upon reaching level 20 Flying Assaulter, you can link it over to Tornado Spin. Okay, now on Blade Lord, which is the level 60 job advancement, you get Bloody Storm, which is a stronger version of Slash Storm. So I'll show you guys what it looks like. This is Slash Storm, and this is Bloody Storm. It's a much more intimidating and very destructive version of Slash Storm. It has the exact same properties as Slash Storm, and it takes you a little bit further. Bloody Storm can also be linked with Flying Assaulter because you can chain it in a really cool fashion. I'll actually show you. So you can simply just do Flying Assaulter and Tornado Spin. You can also do Flying Assaulter and Bloody Storm, but if you chain all three attacks together, you can travel a pretty far distance. In fact, I'll show you guys. Whoops, I accidentally popped a Fit Chop skill. Here, let me show you. Flying Assaulter, Bloody Storm, and then Tornado Spin, so you can travel a very long distance with those three. And then of course, you can finish off with Upper Step. Blade Ascension is a aerial mobility skill where it is a upwards jump that attacks enemies in front of you and in a somewhat diagonal I would say 80-degree fashion, like around here. This is one of my favorite skills in Dual Blade's kit just because it serves as not only a form of damage but as a form of mobility. Because, like I said before, even though our flash jump is relatively short, we have a lot of mobility type skills: Flying Assaulter, Tornado Spin, Bloody Storm, and Blade Ascension. Now what's cool is that due to natural laws of physics, any velocity that you have in the air will carry you even further. So if you have flash jump and then you use Blade Ascension, you will actually travel much farther, like this. And then of course you can use Blade Ascension multiple times, which is awesome. And of course, compiled with attack speed, you can fly even higher. You can get pretty creative with this skill, honestly. I like it a lot. Doesn't do too much damage, but it's not meant to be a damaging skill. It's mostly just meant to be a form of mobility, and you can link it to Flying Assaulter. So what you can do is you can use Blade Ascension, Flying Assaulter, Bloody Storm, and Tornado Spin, and then Blade Ascension again. Chains of Hell is a very, very useful skill. It is a hook skill, kind of. Let me show you what it looks like. Well, first off, it's a 45-second cooldown. It does a decent amount of damage. Every attack crits, and it has a 10% chance to stun the target. But what was that? Okay, that was weird. Most importantly, you'll be invincible during and for 3 seconds after the attack. This skill is a invincibility frame skill. So let me show you what it looks like. You grab an enemy in front of you, pull you towards them, and you do a lot of damage. Now you see right here you have a small timer for invincibility. You don't really use Chains of Hell for damage, to be honest. In fact, a lot of dual blades use this as a means of dodging very serious attacks because it has a 3-second invincibility frame, which is quite long. Because unlike most other invincibility frame skills like Xenon's Orbital Cataclysm or like most people's hyper skills, which do give them invincibility frames, they are locked during the entire animation. It's mostly just to prevent you from dying while you're using the attack. However, Chains of Hell allow you to move directly after using the skill. So I'm going to wait until it comes out of cooldown. Okay, let's see how it works. Go down here, use the skill, and you can move around and do whatever the hell you want for 3 seconds, which is one of the most versatile invincibility frame skills in the game. Mirror Image is Dual Blade's Shadow Partner. This is the third skill that requires a mastery book to go past the original level of 10 to get to 20, and this doubles every single attack except Flashbang. Advanced Darksight is an improved version of Darksight in which you can actually attack and conduct any activity during Darksight, and not only does it have a chance of keeping you in Darksight during the attacks of up to 49%, but it also has a chance to trigger Darksight every time you get attacked. Even better is that while in Darksight, you get 20% final damage, which is quite substantial. So as you can see here, I'm in Darksight. Ordinarily in Darksight, the only thing you can do is use mobility skills. However, Dual Blades can attack in Darksight, and sometimes you stay in Darksight. You see right there, I kept myself in Darksight. And sometimes it takes you out. So the final damage buff here is quite substantial too. It's 20%. As you can see right here, I have 20% final damage by default. I pop Advanced Darksight and it boosts my damage by a whopping almost 9 mil. Life Drain has a 10% chance to recover 20% of max HP when attacking. And this is a very good skill because even though the proc chance is very low, of only 10%, Dual Blades have a lot of attacks that attack multiple times in quick succession, which means you can proc the chance multiple times as well. Enveloping Darkness is your usual Thief Resistance skill, which gives you HP, Status Resist, and Elemental Resist. Shadow Meld is the fourth and final skill required to use a Mastery Book on. And the way it works is that it gives you more dodge chance of 30%, and every time you dodge an attack, you get 15 attack, and all attacks you do become 100% crit rate. Now, I'll explain a little bit later for why this is not the most important skill to rely on, but let me show you what it looks like. So every time you dodge a skill, like miss, proc Shadow Melt up here, which actually can be extended by buff duration. So even though it has a 7-second duration and a cooldown of 5 seconds, you can extend it by having buff duration. See, it went up to 10 instead of 7. Now the reason why I don't find Shadow Melt to be the most useful skill in the game, especially for bossing, is that most endgame bosses do not actually have touch damage hitboxes, which is how you normally want to proc Shadow Melt. Additionally, their attacks always hit no matter how high your dodge chance is, so you actually can never proc Shadow Melt in an effective and reliable way. There is one way to proc Shadow Melt without having to actually get yourself killed in bosses, but I'll explain that in a little bit later. So that's why even though you get 100% crit chance for 7 seconds, I still recommend you try to go for 100% crit rate passively so that you don't need to rely on it to do crits, because dual blades actually rely on critical hits to do a lot of damage, as do most thieves. Moving on to Blade Master, dual blades are actually kind of a terrible, not really a terrible class, but not the greatest class in the game until they reach 4th job and they get a ton of good skills, so I'll get started right away. Blade Fury is your best mobbing skill in the game. It attacks both sides really quickly, and it also has its own ignore defense of 20%. Does a decent amount of damage, attacks a lot of enemies, and it attacks a decent amount of times. Phantom Blow is your main single target DPS skill, which looks like this. It's a very cool looking animation where you jab in front of you multiple times, and it comes with its own ignore defense of 30% as well. Final Cut I'll actually get to in a little bit. We're going to skip that for now and go into Sudden Raid, which every thief has, is your ultimate skill. But the difference in Dual Blade Sudden Raid compared to Shadower and Nightlord's Sudden Raid is that Dual Blade Sudden Raid reduces Final Cut's remaining cooldown by 20%. Maple Warrior, you know everyone has one. That's what it looks like. Hero's Will, a CC removal. Mirror Target, and the way this works is it places your own mirror image or your own clone as a dummy. It doesn't actually remove your mirror image, it used to, but not anymore. And it also has a passive effect of increasing your avoidability by 25% and your defense by 60%, so it makes dual blades a little bit bulky. The way this thing works is that it actually aggroes any targets nearby. So let me see if I can get it to work. I'll place a shadow or mirror target right there. And these guys should be going after him. But I think only when they're provoked. But as you can see, they seem to be more inclined to target this guy. Or maybe not at all. Anyways, the way this works is that the dummy has a decent amount of HP, and Shadow Meld activates whenever you attack the dummy. So this is typically how you would proc Shadow Meld when you're attacking a boss, because, you know, most of the time if you get hit by a boss's attack, you die instantly. You can use a dummy instead, and the dummy does not get one-shotted, which is interesting. But like I said, not the most reliable thing in the world. Shadow Meld is a very powerful skill, but I still recommend you get 100% crit no matter what. Sharpness increases your critical rate and critical damage, very nice. Toxic Venom is an improved version of Venom, which can stack your Venom up to 3 times. Katara Expert is your improved mastery for Kataras, and it gives you 71% mastery, or no, 70%, but 71 with combat orders. Also gives you some more attack power and 20% final damage. Thorns used to be a buff, now they've removed it and turned it into a passive. Now it gives you a 31 or 30 attack and 90% knockback resistance, which enhances to 93 and 31 with decent combat orders. Yeah, in case you guys were wondering why I magically popped combat orders, there was a clip that I scrapped, so yeah. Now let's go back to Final Cut. This is the iconic skill for Dual Blade's heavy final damage boost, in that the way it works, you can charge this skill up, but you can also cast it right away. It does a heavy amount of damage to all targets in its path, and I'll show you how it works. It costs HP instead of MP. Or it costs both HP and MP, rather. You can charge it up. The longer you charge it up for, the more damage it does. And then, if I could show you what it looks like when an enemy gets close, but it doesn't seem like those guys want to get any close. Alright, right this way. And then, boom! Oh, I missed. Well, that's awkward. Okay, well, for the time being, I'll show you guys what the buff is. Final Cut is not really meant for its damage. In fact, it's meant mostly for the buff. When activating Final Cut, regardless of whether you hit the target or how long you charge the attack for, you get 40% final damage, which is significant. And the duration is 60 seconds, which can be extended with buff duration, and has a cooldown of 90 seconds or 88 at 31. Another important thing is that this is also a invincibility frame skill. So Final Cut combined with Chains of Hell give Dual Blades 6 seconds of on-demand invincibility, which is really, really good. Now let me show you guys, if you're looking at the cooldown right now, it's at 47, 46, 45 seconds. Sudden Raid reduces the remaining cooldown by 20 seconds. There you go, you saw a jump in the cooldown. So even though you can extend the cooldown of Final Cut by however much you would like to, you don't need to, because by using Sudden Raid, if your Sudden Raid cooldown is at 30 seconds, you can use Sudden Raid about twice in every time you use Final Cut, which means that you can have Final Cut active 24/7. Although buff duration is definitely helpful, because you may forget to use Sudden Raid, or you may just choose not to want to. So yeah, Dual Blades, we have a ton of attacking skills, as you can tell. First job we have 1, second job we have another 1, or technically for the first 2 jobs we have 2, second job we have another 2. We have 3 more for second point, or 2.5. For third job, we have 3 more again. Fourth job, we have 4 more attacks. So we do have a lot of attacking skills. So the thing is, Dual Blades actually have a lot of skills that you can still use throughout your entire time of playing Dual Blade. It's not like some other classes where you never use your first job skills ever again. You always are going to find a need to use Tornado Spin. Not so much these guys. Flying Assaulter is a must-have. Flash Fang's a must-have. Blade Ascension, Blaze, Storm, Chains of Hell, all a must-have, and then of course the 4-chop skills, so you'll be filling up your keyboard layout quite extensively. Alright, now let's move on into the hyper skills. Our 3 passive enhancers are for Bloody Storm, Phantom Blow, and Blade Fury. You want to put 1 point in Blade Fury spread to get more mobbing. You want to put 1 point in Bloody Storm spread to get more mobbing as well. Sometimes people might want to put another point in, or put 1 point into Extra Strike instead, because it gives you more damage, but remember, Bloody Storm and Blade Fury are not meant to be DPS skills, they are meant to be mobbing. Put all 3 points in Phantom Blow Reinforce, Guard Break, and Extra Strike. So as you can tell, Dual Blades have a lot of innate ignore enemy defense, in the form of Phantom Blow's passive 30%, along with Guard Break of 20% additional, so that's 50% ignore defense on just Phantom Blow alone. Additionally, your hyper skills, Blade Clone, gives you 10% more damage, and it also causes your attacks to do an extra tick of damage of 140%, which I'll show you right now. So any attack you do, it does a bonus tick damage to another target. If I don't kill it, well, that's awkward. Okay, I gotta find a target that doesn't die in 1 hit, so give me 1 sec. Let's go to Arcana. And let's attack these guys. Oof. Alright. So as you can, do you see a... No, sec. Oh no, you have to use a skill rather, not a... I don't think you can use an auto attack. Yeah. So let's see if I can get this to work. Come on. There you go. Did you guys see like a small tick? It may not always attack the same target, because if the original target dies, it just tries to find the nearest target next to it. It's kind of a weird attack. It's kind of hard to see, but it's like another DPS enhancer, and it increases your damage by another 10%. Epic Adventures, you're level 200 hyper skill, and it gives you another 10% total damage. This is what it looks like. Pretty cool. Oscar's Anger is probably one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful hyper skill in the entire game, because the way it works is that upon activation, it sends you into a huge frenzy of blades, and it causes you to be a walking death machine. I'm not joking. It lasts for 10 seconds, but since Oscar's Anger is a buff, it can actually be extended by server lag, so if you're lucky and lag is on your side, it increases up to maybe sometimes 13 or 14 seconds. Does 420% base damage, 4 attacks each, and ignores 100% of the enemy's defense, so this skill does true damage. And you can also move and jump while using the skill, and if you want to cancel, just press the skill right again, so this is what it looks like. Does a lot of damage, a lot of ticks. Really, really good for bosses, and of course, remember, like all of hyper skills can be enhanced by notes, so this can do a lot of damage. It's a very powerful DPS and mobbing skill alike. Okay, moving on to the 5th job V Matrix. Let's get out of here before I kill myself. So, Dual Blade's 2 5th job skills are Blade Tempest, which is a much more... how do I say? It's a much more explosive version of Asura. Now, unlike Asura, it is not a buff, it is a hold down skill. It's kind of like Phantom's Tempest, where you just do a crap ton of damage to enemies in front of you. There is an initial burst damage of 1086, I think it's up to, I believe, 1200 damage with 7 times on up to 10 enemies, and then continuously deals a stream of damage 5 times on up to 10 enemies in front of you. And it ignores 100% of additional enemy defense, which means this also does true damage. So let me show you what it looks like. It's a very, very, very explosive skill. Let's see if I can get... Actually, let's go back into Cavern Lower Path. Oops. The skill has got immense range, immense damage, immense speed, and just the reach is amazing. Look at this. It's a huge frenzy. It's like an even bigger version of Austin, and it's even stronger. Attacks much faster, attacks a lot more, and the range is incredible too. Very, very powerful. So combined, Dual Blade has insane burst damage of both Blade Tempest and Asta's Anger. You can do a crap ton of damage in a very short amount of time. Blades of Destiny is your second skill, and it is a spammable ultimate. It's very, very powerful. It has immense vertical or mostly vertical reach. Horizontal is not the greatest, however it attacks pretty much everything above you. Unfortunately, Blades of Destiny does not attack anything below you. It's just a primarily upwards vertical skill. So if you want to attack as many mobs as possible, get as low as you can. This is what it looks like. It's a lot of damage. It attacks up to 12 enemies. It has a very low cooldown, so you can spam it quite often. Let me show you again. It's a very, very good skill. Dual Blades actually needed this because even though we have not too bad, our mobbing's not that bad. It's just that we don't really have a very powerful stationary mobbing ability with a lot of reach. As you know, some classes have very, very powerful wave clear for their 4th job, but Dual Blades, all we really get is Blade Fury, which is not a bad skill, but it's not the greatest in terms of reach, so Blades of Destiny helps a ton with clearing out large maps. Those are the two. We get shared with Last Resort, which is, the Universal Thief skill. As for the rest of it, okay, now this is the Will skill, or True Arachnid Reflection, which you can only get upon reaching level 235 and completing Esfera, and the Shadow Walker, which is another Thief Universal skill. Now, in terms of what nodes you want to go for, because Dual Blade actually has a decent amount of skills that you want to go for, there's actually quite a few nodes that you want. But in terms of which you want to max out most primarily, is you want to go for Phantom Blow, Asta's Anger, and Blade Fury. However, you also want to go for Sudden Raid and Blade Ascension if possible, because of Sudden Raid, it's a very powerful burst tool, because you do use it quite often. And Blade Ascension is another mobbing skill that you can use alongside Blade Fury. So typically I like to use Blade Ascension a lot more when I'm doing dailies versus Blade Fury, just because Blade Ascension has vertical reach and about the same range as Blade Fury. Actually no, a little longer, even though Blade Fury hits both sides. Alright, so we covered all that. Now let's go into hyperstats. Like Xenon and pretty much every other character, you want to max boss damage, ignore defense, critical damage, and critical rate, and then put other points into whatever you can afford. It's perfectly fine, and since we do have a lot of stance, you don't really need to put points into stance, although I like to, just because 90% is not always gonna keep you from getting knocked back, so I do put a little bit more into it just to even the odds a bit. In our ability, Dual Blades do not need attack speed, because we actually hit the hard attack speed cap with only 2 steroids, the Decent Speed Infusion and the Monster Park Green Pod, so we do not need attack speed +1, which is very helpful. And instead you want to go for boss damage, buff duration, and if possible try to go for either flat attack or drop rate if you feel like it. In terms of what you want to go for equipment, Dual Blades have a lot of attack. Now I'm actually going to explain really quickly what the secondary weapon is. It is a Katara, and it is one of the few scrollable secondary weapons in the game. Kataras come with a decent amount of attack and also a good amount of HP to make you less squishy, and they can be scrolled on their own, which means you can get a lot of attack from Dual Blades weapons together, because if you see right here, this is a 690 attack dagger, and then this is a 314 attack Katara, so combined these things give well over 1000 attack. So Dual Blades benefit a lot from percent attack. Of course you still want to throw in some boss damage and PDR whenever you can, but like I said, Dual Blades do have a lot of passive ignore enemy defense in the form of Phantom Blow. Not to mention their 2 big burst skills, Blade Tempest and Asta's Anger, do true damage, so it doesn't matter how much PDR you have. Even so, it's still worthwhile to have. Try to just go for as much boss damage and attack as possible. As for the rest of your items, just scroll them as much as you can. Dual Blades are probably better to be built as attack based, not so much luck. Of course you can go both if you would like to, but I have a few items here that have attack pots, like this is double attack, this is double attack. A lot of these have attack potentials because Dual Blades just have so much base attack that if you get a lot of percent attack, it helps out a ton. As for link skills, the same follows suit. You want to go for whatever you can to increase your overall damage. Like I said, because Dual Blades have a lot of ignore defense on their own, they don't really need light wash too much. Everything else is very beneficial though. Anyways, I think that should be it. I don't know if I missed out on anything. My overall verdict on Dual Blade is that while they are one of the best classes in the game in terms of how fun they are, I find them to be very fun. I am definitely biased. However, I do believe that they merit the praise that I give them because they have just so many skills that you can use. They're not nearly as, I guess, flashy or combo heavy as some other classes, but you just have a ton of skills that will be useful at all stages of the game, like Tornado Spin, Flying Assaulter, Flashbang, Blaze Storm, Blade Ascension, Chains of Hell. They're just a very versatile melee class, and they're very fast, they're very strong. They are one of the most expensive classes in the game to fund. I will concede that much, because you do have to scroll 2 weapons, and also it's just overall very hard to get Dual Blade's damage up there. Dual Blade's maximum potential is hidden behind a large paywall, which does suck. However, if you can break through that paywall and get to the end of it, we can be one of the best classes in the game. We are fantastic at dojo. We do a lot of damage to bosses just because we have a lot of attack speed and a lot of true damage, like I said, with Asuda and Blade Tempest. So if you are willing to put in the time and the resources into this class, you will not be disappointed. I love this class a lot. I've played it ever since it came out and it has always been my spirit animal class in a sense. I can never say enough about this class. I love it a lot. I'll never find a better class than this, in my personal opinion. They can release as many classes as they want to, and I will still love Dual Blade. Anyways, that should wrap it up. I do apologize for how long the video is going to be. I'll try to cut it down as much as I can in the post-production, but it still probably will go well over 30 minutes. I just wanted to make sure I covered everything as much as possible. If I missed anything, please be sure to point it out in the comment section below so that everyone can see. And yeah, looking forward to seeing what you guys have to say about the review. I will probably make a Demon Slayer review in the future, although I'm not too experienced with Demon Slayer rather, nor Luminous, so this may be my only class guide that I'll be releasing alongside my Zenon. However, if I do garner some more experience, I'll try my best to look into it. But for now, I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.